It's the middle of winter and it's extremely cold. A bit too cold for wilderness adventures for me, so I'm going to use this time to give the rear end of the XJ some love. The Jeep's got a sagging problem, and I'm not sure why. I suspect a failing spring pack, or more likely a dying bushing. So my first job is tearing down the rear end, and looking for possible clues along the way. These springs are made by Rubicon Express, and they're for a 5.5-inch lift. It's a stiff spring if you have a light rear end, but for what I do, they're pretty well suited at supporting all the gear I carry. I can't see any visible signs of wear though, although the spring pads have worn away. Fortunately, I have some spares I pulled from an old leaf pack, which is just enough to replace the 2 broken ones on the driver's side. And since I have the parts and I'm doing the job, I'm going to replace the 10-year-old poly bushings in the shackles. Just to get the leaves a little bit cleaner, I'm using a wire brush just to clean them up. But I'm not going to go overboard with it. I am going to grease them up though, in between the leaves. Now I don't think I'd recommend that in a really dry climate. I don't know, you'd have to tell me. I don't live in one. But where I am with winter wheeling and going out, it does make the leaf springs behave a bit better. They're a bit happier and quieter. And I'm also going to put in a 3-degree adjustment shim to correct the pinion angle on the rear end. Now I've built that new drive shaft, I think it'd be a good shout to put this in, considering I'm doing the work. Hopefully that'll be all right. So that should be a pretty happy leaf pack. One thing I've had to do actually, just to use the shim, is just lengthen the end of the stud underneath so it goes past the shim and into the leaf spring perch just on the axle. So that is something you would have to do if you want to use these. But I mean, that could just be because this is, you know, it's all different for different brands, isn't it? Both leaf packs are greased up and installed, and as I suspected, the XJ is still sagging on the same side. But at least now I know that the rear is okay and it's an issue with the front coil. And on the plus side, the pinion angle is looking almost perfect for the first time in 10 years. But like usual, the last step of any job is smearing undercoat over everything to try and keep things from turning brown. Well, the rear end's back together and I was just about to put the rear wheel well liner on for the driver's side, and I just noticed a bit of undercoat lifting away on the front frame side bracket. And I noticed what looked to be a crack on the front leaf spring bracket. And I've pulled the undercoat away. It all looks pretty good, to be honest, around where the crack is. It's like, it doesn't look perished as if it was the undercoat failing and everything creeped under it. It looks like actually it cracked on the thin metal where the spring hanger was connected to. And it is actually a hole straight through, and it's gone underneath all the seam sealer and now there's there's corrosion to deal with, and I've got some repairs to do. I think I've caught it just in the nick of time, to be fair, because usually when these corrosion problems happen and they creep under seam sealer, it can creep for a really long way, and you start pulling that seam sealer up and you're like, shit, this is a good few years down the line. But I think I've got it early. So when I first bought the Jeep, I had some corrosion problems at the back here. In fact, you can see a repair patch that I put in probably about 9 years ago. There's no corrosion on the inside on that patch, and it's looking good and it's held up great. And you can also see there's no seams anymore, so there's no like little seam here with a pinch weld anywhere on the vehicle. I removed all of those, and the point being is those are always the starting point. But it looks like this is just cracked here where the metal's really thin, and it's let moisture in that's got underneath some of the sound deadening and other sort of bits and bobs that I've had in there. But I've cleaned this up and it's looking good. It's very thin there though. This is a common area for corrosion on the Cherokee. The rear wheel well, rocker panel and floor pan all meet together, and normally there's a spot weld seam connecting them all. The paint in these seams is sometimes non-existent, plus seam sealer will fail after 20 plus years of living next to a spinning tyre throwing water and sand everywhere. It's not a big repair though, just an annoying one because of the structure. But if it's not repaired properly, then you'll be able to see into the rocker panel from inside the Jeep. So I need to make sure I replicate the original structure. I'm not going to be shy about cutting a lot away though, mainly because a lot of metal has perished. It's thin, grey and pitted, and this will make it almost impossible to weld to. The most important thing though is cleaning everything very well, otherwise it will turn into a frustrating job, and I'll wish I would have spent the extra time on the prep before welding. So this is the panel. I've just been bending it carefully. It isn't the best, I'll be honest with you. I've kind of goofed it up in one area, but I think it'll be alright. I'll be able to use an extra bit of metal, but it's going to go in like that. And basically, yeah, that's how it's going to go. So it's there. That's kind of lame. I mean, I didn't do a brilliant job. I could always take the hammer and just bridge the gap a bit, just at the bottom there, just to give me a little bit more material to work with. But yeah, like that. But just that gap there is not going to be so good. But this is 1.5 and this is like 0.9. There'll be a bit more material here to work with.
So now that I think this repair's done, I can go like that with a torch. You can see that it is not done. So I got some pinholes to deal with.
Well, the repair's pretty much finished now, apart from the inside. The inside is not looking so good, but I really can't be bothered to grind the inside down. I've just sprayed it with a high corrosion primer, and I'm probably just then going to Raptor line it when I have some other Raptor lining to do and use that paint, and then forget about it. I won't use seam sealer, because if it happens again and water gets in, it'll just get under the seam sealer and I won't know about it. It's better I see the paint go first. The repair's looking good on the outside. I've undercoated it now with like a heavy bitumen undercoat. I did one layer, let it set overnight, came back, then did a second. It should be good to go. But there's just one piece of the puzzle left for a repair like that, and that's the wall that you can't see the other side of, that's in the rocker panel here in the box rocker. So what I need to do is take the compressor with the hose on, put the Dinatrol hose up inside the box rocker, and just make sure that area is catered for in terms of like film wax, cavity wax, so it doesn't corrode from the inside, or it will. But you can see the wheel well liner actually offers some protection on that area there. Maybe that's why it's held up so good or didn't corrode really fast. And since I've sort of been running wheel well liners like this, so I do think they're very good. The only thing I'd say is if you're building a crawler and you want that tyre to go up as far as possible into the wheel well, it might not be the best option for you. But the reality is when you go with bigger tyres, you got offset wheels and stuff, the tyre can only go so far up anyway, so I'm not actually really losing any upward travel with a 35-inch tyre in this setup I've got here. But that should be good going forward. Well, there's a few more jobs done on the Jeep. It really all started with just trying to find out why this side's sagging. I think I've found out now, and I probably sussed it anyway when I built the 3-link. It's that front coil. I'm going to have a look at Metal Cloak or Skyjacker or some sort of dual rate coil, so I know that my 3-link's got the maximum amount of travel it can have. I know I probably won't ever need it, but you know, it feels silly to have built it and for it not to be able to reach its full potential in a situation where I might need it. That hole in the back end wasn't a great surprise. It wasn't the worst of what happened today. I mean, it's a pretty nice repair now, and I'm sure it will last many years to come. The inside I've sprayed and just kind of tidied up a little bit, but it really doesn't bother me because it's just underneath the seat. As long as it's watertight from the outside and the inside, that's all I really worry about. But I've noticed an oil leak coming from the bottom of the turbocharger, and that's coming from the oil drain where it joins up to the bottom of the turbo. I did do a boost test on the vehicle just to double check everything. You know, I always do that from time to time. Held 20 psi, great, and only dropped very slowly, which is fantastic. It means, you know, there's no boost leaks in the system. But that oil drain needs to be addressed because obviously I'm losing oil. I've really run out of time this week, and I've also have to apologise for how crap the camera work was at the beginning of the video and the audio. So on the last video I lost quite a lot of accessories. By lost I mean they got destroyed on that last outing. I lost an arm on the drone, which obviously doesn't matter in here, but I lost the microphone and some other gear, and it all arrived today. So you can probably see that there's a lamp on the camera again. The audio is way better, the visuals are probably better too. So I'm kind of back to where I was before. But at the start of this video it was pretty much just me with an old GoPro kind of filming. But there are other things that I need to do, like I wanted to do an oil change, and also my water pump, which is brand new, has started dripping from the weep hole. I'm not happy about that. I've just put that in. That is a blueprint, like 900 crown water pump. Why is it now dripping? I don't know. These are the things that piss me off. You know, I don't mind doing some corrosion at the back. I really don't mind that. That hole, that was deservedly so. I've repaired it, and it'll probably be like that for another 10 to 15 years if I maintain the undercoat and I don't fill the vehicle up with water all the time. So it'll be fine. I can forgive it. But putting in a new water pump and it leaking 2 months later, that is not good. So just never ends, does it? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again in another one. Take care.